So let's jump in like with just like giving you a quick overview on the product world, what's happening in Sauce, and how is sort of Sauce helping customers to solve the problems that we are seeing today. Again, like this should be not new to most folks. You have seen the world is changing drastically. We have experienced a lot of change in the software industry. And there are three key things which come to mind, like velocity. There's no surprise for anyone that we are moving from fast to faster. CD is now becoming a norm. And it's pretty much like not only deployment once a day or once a week, it's like multiple times a day deployments are happening. With this, like we are seeing a change in the testing strategy. So testing used to be sort of back towards do it later half of the delivery cycle. Now it's sort of getting spread out during the delivery cycle, and we're seeing a lot more involvement from different actors within the teams. The other thing which is happening is as the delivery is moving and it's moving left, and also right, like the testing is moving left and right. We are also seeing like folks still want really high confidence. So when you are actually shipping your software, you want to make sure that the application is working. It's giving the best experience to the customers as you want it to. So how does this all relate to mobile? Mobile is hard. Mobile is really hard to change. A web is more manageable, but with mobile being remote in nature, these become even more complex and the risks are even higher. So it makes it even harder for you to change once you deploy an app, and it's sort of with your end users. Again, I'll sort of show these slides. Like, again, like I'm assuming like a lot of folks would have been through one of these different stages, must sort of resonate to the tooling which you are seeing on these pages, and then you'll start seeing the relation between the challenges. So again, like each stage, you have different persona, like starting from devs in the dev stage, staging might be QAs or PMs, and then production is where your sort of end user kicks in. And there are a lot of different tools and applications which are sort of spread across this. So you will see like starting from like GitHub or Bitbucket on your left, all the way when you're going to production, you're sort of looking at different tools, like maybe you're using Rollbar, Dynatrace. Like, so there are a lot of tools, there are a lot of signals which you're getting across this software delivery lifecycle. The thing which is interesting is we all do want to empower our teams. We want to make sure our teams are empowered. They pick the tooling of their choice. The challenge which it creates is these things don't integrate well. So it's really hard to get consolidated signals coming out throughout the stage which we have. And that's where like you sort of have low confidence when you ship software. You don't know whether the thing which you're shipping actually is going to work for your end users or not. This is like is basically the question which hangs on your mind is our product or application providing the great experience that we are looking for? So how does this all come together? Like where are we seeing like these things sort of bringing them together, bringing all the audience together, bringing the delivery team closer and together? So as I was sort of mentioning the challenges, this is like the lens which we are seeing here at Sauce Labs on how we can bring the delivery life cycle together. So the big thing being is bringing a single view. So trying to get the different applications, the different tools that you're using into the same lens, so you can actually get a single view of insights and the different actions which the users are taking throughout this testing lifecycle. It helps you with collaboration. So our hope is that the teams can now collaborate on whatever tool they're using, and then basically bring those signals, again, as I was saying before, into insights, and then you can view what's happening, where are the teams at, what is the current status of your software. And this is all getting executed on the Sauce Labs platform. So you can see like all the way from real devices, doing like mobile emulator simulators, like app distribution, video recording. So like any metadata or any sort of data which is associated to tests are getting collected, and basically you can access it logging into the system. So we're giving you a single pane of glass to help solve the challenge which you were seeing, which you had with multiple tools during the delivery lifecycle. So how does the Sauce platform work? So this is where like traditionally you can see like Sauce Labs has the virtual devices, which is used for the automated testing. We also have the real device cloud. Again, there are like over 300 devices, and I just don't even remember like how many different combinations of those devices you can have within the cloud. But it's just like it is trying to cater for your real testing, which you can do with your applications. You can deploy it on a real device. You can see how it behaves. You can see how end user will see it. And as of this, like, I'm pretty excited. Like in the span of last few months, there's a lot of news which is happening in the product world. Like we have had Visual, which is like an end-to-end testing tool. So again, this is part of us bringing the ecosystem which I was showing you back into the Sauce Labs from a testing lens. So like having visual testing in the same place. I personally have been involved with the framework expansion, as Marcus was saying. So adding new frameworks around Cypress Test Cafe, Playwright, Puppeteer, and expanding the same sort of orchestration model on XCUI and Espresso. We have acquired a company for API testing. So you can do your API testing, monitoring, load testing, all those type of different things which you can do with APIs using the product. There's a low code, no code product, which is really cool. So if you're using like any SaaS applications, which again, we understand are hard to test, be it Salesforce, be it Workday, you can use Autonomic, which is the new product which we have acquired, and test those applications internally. And last but not the least is the Test Fairy. So that's a very much front and center of our mobile offering, which you saw demo from Yair. And that's another one of those products which is bringing like the app distribution, the bug reporting, the crash reporting, all within the realm of Sauce Labs. We don't have time to get deeper, but please feel free to reach out if there are things in here which are interesting to you. From here, like I would say, the lens at Sauce is how do we make it test? How do we make testing easy? How do we make it more accessible? And how do we get all the signals in a single place? So if you look at the platform, that's like the different types of testing which are happening, the applications like the mobile SaaS, and then we have like the different types of the tools which I was just calling out, like in the toolkit around, you have Source Control, you have Autonomic, you have Test Fairy, you have Visual, like all the different type of testing paradigms which you can sort of do on the platform. And this is where it gets really, really interesting, because what we are trying to do here is just collect all the signals and make your life easy and make it easy for you to test and move forward. Again, like I would say, like what makes Sauce a bit different from our competitors is like the CSMs, the solution architect, the support teams. Like we all share knowledge from the different paradigms. Like you talk to Marcus, you have talked to Wim, and there are like other folks who are sort of the key leading players in the testing industry for a long time. So we're bringing all that knowledge and using the platform to make it easy for folks to test. Ultimately, we think that the software should just work. You should not worry about testing. You should just have the confidence to ship. So again, on the last note, I hope you're excited as I am. Like there's a lot of investment. There's a lot of cool stuff which is happening within Sauce. And yeah, I'm just looking forward to innovating on the product side and shipping the great things which you have been asking. From here, I know I wanted to make it quick, so I get enough, like Wim gets enough time to showcase the new product functionality which we have been shipping, and you don't have to hear me like talking about product updates. So from here off to Wim, please, Wim, if you're there, I'll stop sharing and you can jump into showcase Espresso and XCUI.
Cool, we'll do that. Thanks, Kunal, for also explaining almost everything that we're going to do. And also thanks, Marcus, for giving us a better understanding about the difference between Appium and also between native frameworks. And what I wanted to show you today is that we've been supporting Espresso and XCUI test already for a while. If you're, for example, already a customer at Sauce Labs, you might have heard of the legacy real device cloud as we have. You're already able to run Espresso and XCUI test cases there. But what we did, and what also Kunal already explained, is that we took it to another level. We took it, first of all, to the new Sauce Labs UI. We're now able to run all Espresso and XCUI test cases on the real devices in the Sauce Labs UI. And I'm going to show you that later on. What I want to show you now is basically just a very simple setup of an Espresso test case. I'm not going to learn you how to code, what the differences are between them, but I just wanted to show you a very simple example of running an Espresso test case, for example, with login test cases of our Sauce Labs demo application, and how you can run that in the new cloud, in the Sauce Labs cloud, also with a new runner, which is called our Test Toolkit runner, or also Sauce CTL. As you can see here, I've shared my Android Studio screen here. This is just a basic, very simple Espresso test case where we're going to log in. We've got specific test cases and functionalities here. We're going to verify a successful login. We're going to verify that we're logged out as a user. I'm annotating my test cases with test or error flow. I'm basically able to run this on an emulator on my local machine, or even on an emulator on Sauce Labs, or on an emulator on the Real Device Cloud, or a real device, a test on the real device on the Sauce Labs cloud. I'm not going to use Android Studio, or I'm not going to use XCUI or Xcode during this demo. I already assume that you have an application, that you would have a sample test application, and also an output, basically the Android tests in an application or the XCUI tests in an application. If not, I'm also going to provide you 2 links with 2 demo repositories where you can just run the commands, follow the instruction, run the commands, and then it will run it on Sauce Labs with different types of configurations. So let me first show you how to use Espresso and XCUI test on the Sauce Labs cloud. And the first starting point for this is our new documentation page. You might have heard of or might have used wiki.saucelabs.com. We're now migrating everything to docs.saucelabs.com, and also give you as a user of our documentation pages the possibility to suggest page edits. So if you think that something is not explained properly, or you have a question, you can raise an issue on GitHub, or you can raise a pull request to fix certain things in the documentation. So making this a real open community where you can help us and we can help you. Having said that, if you go to docs.saucelabs.com and you click on the link here, docs, then you would see basically the new documentation where you can find everything. You can use the search bar that you would see in the right corner. For now, what we're going to do is we're going to use the Test Runner Toolkit. So we would click on Test Runner Toolkit here on the left. When you click on this, you would see more options for using it and how to configure it, how to install it. Let's first go to the Test Runner Toolkit link. And there on this page, and let me zoom in a little bit, you would already see what Kunal was explaining. He already mentioned that with the new runner that we created, you can run Cypress, Playwright, Testcafe, and Puppeteer test cases with Sauce Labs. But now we also added Espresso and XCUI test, which you can run on the real devices in the Real Device Cloud of Sauce Labs. So not running them on the legacy RDC, but on the new Sauce Labs UI. We're already going to show you a preview. If you want to use it, you're already able to use it. If you have feedback about it, please let us know. But if you would click, for example, on the Espresso part, you would see the supported platforms, meaning 5.1 is supported until higher, and also the same for XCUI test. Then what you need to do, and let me basically scroll, zoom out a little bit, we need to go to the installation and the setup. And in this case, we need to use something which is called the Sauce Control Runner. If you're used to using something with Node, you can use npm to install it. But if you're used to using curl commands, you can also use curl to download the runner. It's a very simple application that will help you configure your configuration. So not configure your test case, but configure your configurations. And based on those configurations, you can run your test cases on Sauce Labs. There are multiple options. I will not dive into all the options, but the advantage of this Sauce CTL runner is also that the configuration and almost all the options are the same for emulators. They're the same for XCUI test on real devices, and also for Espresso test cases on the real devices. The only difference is the name of the device that you want to use. To give you an example of the Sauce CTL repository that you can use, for example, for Espresso, is that you can go to Sauce training and then to demo.espresso, and we also going to share that link. And there you would also see the options, or basically the prerequisites you have to install this on or your local machine or in your CI pipeline. The steps are basically the same for using Espresso or using XCUI test. This repository also holds different types of configurations. And that was also what I was mentioning. The runner just needs to have a configuration, and that configuration will tell where it needs to run it, for example, in the US data center, or if it needs to run it on the European data center, and also which test cases it needs to run on which device. You can run it in parallel. Everything is explained here, but let me just start by opening a very basic configuration file. This one is located here, and let me zoom in a little bit. And after explaining this, I will also run it in our cloud, and you can see what the effect is on Sauce Labs. The basic setup that we need to have here is a Sauce property. That Sauce property needs to know which region, basically which data center you need to run it. And also it could be useful to provide the concurrency. With concurrency, we mean the amount of devices that you could use, or the amount of emulators that you could use for Espresso to run test cases on Sauce Labs. Then you also have the option to provide some extra metadata, and that could be useful if you want to find all your information within Sauce Labs. Then for Espresso, you need to provide your application, the path of your application. Where is your application stored, on your local machine or in your pipeline, and also your test application. Both applications will be uploaded to Sauce Labs and will be used to run the test case on Sauce Labs. And there's also an advantage in this by using the Sauce CTL runner, which I will show you in a few minutes. Then what you can do is, or what you need to do is provide suites. And with suites, we mean what do you want to run and on which device do you want to run it. You can create multiple suites. This is a very basic setup where we just have a name of the suite. In this case, I would call it Sauce Labs Espresso Test from example 1. It's going to run all test cases. The device, it doesn't matter which device. I'm using dynamic allocation here, as we call it. Just give me one Samsung device. The rest is not important. I just want to run it on a Samsung device. And the only restriction I give here is the device type, that I say I want to run it on a phone, but it can be on whatever. It could be on a phone or on a tablet, or you can just provide the any keyword here. All the options are also explained in the documentation, which link we will also share. But this is the very basic setup that you need to have to run this on Sauce. Well, let me now open my editor for Espresso. I opened the project here on my favorite editor. I'm using WebStorm here due to JavaScript love. But what I needed to do here, as mentioned, I need to make sure that Sauce CTL is already running on my machine or downloaded in my pipeline. As mentioned, a very simple and very small application. But if I want to run my test case, then I can provide the command Sauce CTL. Then I provide run. If you do not provide a configuration, it will just pick a default configuration that you have in a specific folder. And this specific folder by default is the Sauce folder, as you can see here on the left. I've got different types of configurations, and I want to run the runner-x1.yaml file for an example here. And let me just show you that specific, that configuration. This is the same configuration that we also had in on the website of the repository. Same configuration, looking for the application, looking for the test application, and trying to run it. If I would now run this command, I would see a few things. And let me make this screen a little bit bigger. First of all, what Sauce CTL will do for you, it will always verify if there is a newer version, because there might be a bug. Every software could have a bug. If there is a bug and there's a new version, we already mentioned that in the logs to you. Secondly, it will provide the nice Sauce bot for the runner itself. But I think more important here, this is what I mentioned before, is already going to verify if you already uploaded the application, the system under test basically, and also the test application that will hold all the test cases, if you already uploaded them to Sauce Labs. If you already uploaded them to Sauce Labs, it will not upload them again. That will speed up your automation process, your execution process, and it will now execute immediately the test cases that are in my test APK on the device. What Sauce CTL is doing here, it's just verifying or trying to figure out in the Sauce Labs cloud, are you ready? Are you ready? Or are you still running the test cases that you need to run? So let me now log into Sauce Labs and go to account.saucelabs.com and log in with my credentials. I need to go to the European data center. And we can already see here that the test case with all the tests, which will be 2 classes with multiple test cases in them, running on Sauce Labs. Well, we cannot see the process here. We need to wait until the test case is finished. And when the test case is finished, we would have the logs of Espresso or the logs of XCUI test uploaded to Sauce Labs, or basically in Sauce Labs. And we would also have the test cases and the video, as you can see here. On the left, you would have the video. You can just go to the part that you think you need to be to verify what is happening in this test. And as you can see, it's executing the test case pretty fast, verifying all the things that it needs to verify. And here on the right, you could see which classes have been executed and which method from which class has been executed. If you want to know more about the logs itself, you can go to the View Logs button here, and there you would have a drop down with or the device logs. Yeah, basically that's it, the device logs. And if there's extra logs, for example, for XCUI test, then you would also see the XCUI test logs here in the View Logs tab. If you want to know on which device we executed this test case, then you could go to the metadata tab. You could see all the data that we used to open our test case here, which application I used, which package name it used, which version it was, and basically all the things that we need to know. Espresso also gives you the option to create screenshots during the test execution. Copy the URL that you see here, and in this case, if I would open it, then this was the test case or the screenshot that I took during my test execution. That's also useful for you, or this might be useful for you when you're running this in the Sauce Labs cloud to see what's happening on the device. Then last but not least, if we dive a little bit more into the details, you would see here all the details of the device that has been used for executing the Espresso test cases. The specific model, in this case, it automatically selected the Samsung Galaxy S10, even though I said, just give me one Samsung device. I can narrow that search by just providing or a more stricter user device name or a stricter regular expression. Then if we go back to also the demo app, let me also do this for XCUI test. I've also got an example here for XCUI test. I already executed this in our cloud just before we did this demo. Same way of working. You need to have a configuration file. In this case, I started it also with the example test case where I want to run all the test cases. Again, we have the warning here that there's a newer version. It will automatically, you can automatically download that one. Also the progress, and you would have the logs here of all the test cases that have been executed on Sauce Labs. If we go back to the test results, we should see here the XCUI test support. If we open this one, we would see the video of the iOS device, also the test cases that have been executed can also be seen here. And again, also the classes and the methods that have been executed on Sauce Labs. You might now wonder, okay, you executed all the test cases, but what should I do if I just want to run a specific test case? Or what should I do if I want to run this with multiple devices and I want to divide my test cases over those devices? Well, good question. Let me just go to, for example, the XCUI test sample repository. The way this works is basically the same for Espresso and for XCUI test. So it doesn't matter if I'm showing you XCUI test now or if I'm showing you Espresso. The way this has been set up has been kind of like in a uniform format, so it can be used if you used to it for once for one framework. You can also use it for other frameworks. And let me just take a look at which example I want to show. Here you can find multiple examples. Let's go for Runner 5 as an example. And in Runner 5, we're going to run something in parallel using dynamic devices. Now, if we go a little bit down, you would now see that we have two suites. This suite is going to run on whatever iOS device is available. Just give me whatever iPhone there is. But as you can also see that I can also provide something like test options, where we can provide a class for XCUI test. And in that case, I should say, this is the class that I need to execute. And this is the method that I want to execute specifically for this test execution. This is the way for you how you can basically divide all the test cases between multiple devices. If I would execute this example, runner, for example, then I would have 2 runs, 2 devices, and basically only running one single test case on that device. Then there's also the last one that I wanted to show you. I think that one is number 4, about the devices. Yes. If you want to run on a specific device that's been allocated to you as a user because you've got your own devices as a customer, or there's a specific device that you want to use in the public cloud, you can also provide a specific name of a device. And you can find that specific name of a device by going to the Sauce Labs Cloud. Let me go to this one. You go to Live, you go, for example, to cross-browser. And then in cross-browser, you would have an overview of all the devices I could use. In this case, I want to run it, for example, on iOS. I go to the filters and I say iOS only. Now I would see only the iOS devices. And if I want to run it, for example, on this iPhone 12, I click on the details. And as you can see here, I've got an ID. I can copy that ID, put it into the name of the configuration file that I had. And when I did that, I can run the test case on this specific device. Hopefully you now have a good overview on how to run native frameworks, Espresso, XCUI test cases on Sauce Labs, and also have it running on new Sauce Labs UI. Like I mentioned, we're going to provide the URLs of the repositories so you can just play with it. If you already have some feedback about it, please let us know, get in contact with us, and we're happy to answer all the questions also that you have about running native frameworks on the Sauce Labs UI. I see here a question from Marian Ferris. Can you choose the operating system version in case of Android? Yes, good question. I didn't show everything in the configuration, but you've got different configuration options. Let me just get back to my desktop and start sharing it. Where you can run it on a specific version. I think it's runner example 3 out of the top of my mind. No, let's just go to the configuration here. Configuration for Espresso, for example. Then you could, for example, see here that you could run it on emulators and real devices at the same time. You can just provide the platform version that you want to run this on, which could be very useful. You could even just only provide a regular expression of the name of the real device that you want to do. For example, just say Samsung and then .asterisk, then it will just give you a Samsung device. But when you provide the platform version also, then it will give you a Samsung device that matches that specific OS version. So hopefully that answers your question also. This works exactly the same, by the way, for XCUI test.